You know, I think about us, the three of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's your day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Her father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.
Welcome to Above the Garage, a Nick and June, the Handmaid's Tale podcast. Hi, friends. Welcome to our spoiler-full deep dive into Season 1, Episode 2 of The Handmaid's Tale, entitled Birthday. This episode is intended for longtime fans because we're going to discuss the episode in the context of the show to date, which is through Season 4. So if you're a new watcher, I would not listen to this episode. I would go and find the spoiler-free analysis that we released on Monday. So the schedule is Mondays for spoiler-free analysis and Wednesdays for the spoiler-full deep dives. Let's do our round of introductions and dive in.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee.
Hi, I'm Scarlett.
Hi, I'm Tina.
Hi, I'm Violet.
And I'm Kate. All right, spoiler full. Do you guys have a lot on this? I'm curious.
One small parallel before I forget that I found in this episode was at the beginning with her voiceover. She's obviously, and it starts with her disassociating because it's another ceremony, and she's looking at the ceiling and she's like, blue oyster, our car was blue. Mm-hmm. And then in season 4, after her testimony, she does the same thing. She looks up, in the sky, and she says the same thing, blue oyster.
Yeah. I remember
and
that.
I think she had just gotten out from her second testimony, the one that was going to be filmed, and there was nobody there, which is fucking infuriating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really an interesting place for them to have had her think back on that.
And you would think she's in Canada, she wouldn't have any need to disassociate in that way anymore, but she still did. She still felt the need because she wasn't
Safe.
Yeah, it wasn't what she thought it would be.
I mean, I guess also if it was just after the testimony, then she had just kind of relived everything too.
Yeah.
That she went through.
And I think that's the connection between, she's disassociating from the fact that Fred's going to be free and she's not going to get her justice. And just imagine for any, rape victim that actually has the bravery to come forward and go through the whole justice system to try and get justice and get ripped apart, only to find out that you're not going to get justice. The ceremony and then disassociating from the result of the ceremony. I think those two things were a good parallel.
There's also a part at the beginning when Emily and June are talking, and in June's voiceover, she talks about, them now, they're fighting in the streets of what used to be Chicago. And my brain immediately was like, Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
They planted that breadcrumb really early, that Chicago was where the fighting was. But it really did pique my interest. I was like, oh wow, they had been planning to do something with Chicago for a very, very long time.
And I pray that we're gonna go back and see it later.
Another thing I would like to speculate, and maybe Dee Dee will get into this because it goes into her favorite thing, which is Rebel Nick. But Ovglen knows there's an eye in the house, right? How does she know there's an eye? Is it because she knows Nick, because they're both rebels? Does she know he's an eye because he's a double agent and he's feeding information? Are they in the same Mayday network? That's something I kind of wondered about. I mean, and it might not be, but
I don't think Emily knows who it is for sure, though, right? Because she would have just told June that if she knew for sure.
That's true.
Especially if she knew he was safe. He was also.
I thought it was very interesting that the idea is that everybody is on edge, and so Nick knows what's going on because I don't know if the eyes have a daily memo of who's gonna get fucking body parts taken off that day, or they have their morning devotional and then okay, we're rounding up these 5 people, and Ovglen Emily was on that list, and that's why Nick is telling, and she's on that list for being gay, right? And Nick is please don't disappear around corners with a known gender traitor who's about to get hauled in they're gonna think that you're gay too, and they're gonna fucking kill you. Like, that's like always Nick's motivation is like, don't show your skin, they're gonna kill you. Like, don't be in the kitchen after bedtime, they're gonna kill you. Like, and that was kind of the way the questioning goes, right? When the eyes beat up June in Serena's living room, is they're kind of like, a lot of privacy by the river. What'd you guys talk about? You know, like, that's where they were going with that. And that's kind of what Nick was trying to say is like, don't get close to her. Like, she's fucked. They know what she's doing.
I like that they both warned each other about each other, and then we get to the finale of season 4. They are all trusting each other at that point, right? Like, Emily is trusting June that Nick is safe because she's basically going back into Gilead for this.
I think it's just a testament to how deep undercover Nick is, right? Like that line, he's so deep undercover, he needs a tube to breathe. It's like, yeah, he's an eye and he's Mayday, but like the eyes don't know he's Mayday and Mayday doesn't know he's an eye. And like, how the fuck does someone even run games like that? Like, that is so complicated that like,
I guess Mayday could know he's an eye.
And I think I think the other reason that Emily's confused is because she's like, that's nice of, like, it doesn't jive in her brain that like, why is he trying to protect you?
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
If he's an eye, if he's an eye, why is he helping you and telling you to stay away from me? Like,
yeah, it's confusing.
I would love to see, this is like so random, but I would love to see a scene with Nick and Emily together.
Oh my God.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Right? That would be a good combo in a scene together. Especially because she like basically saved his child. I mean, she did save his child.
She did. Physically got her across the border.
Right. I think they need to have a scene together. I love it.
It's cute when June's walking out at the end of the episode before she knows that Offglen is not who she thinks she is. And she's like, well, at least she'll be proud of me for letting him win. And she has all this information. And just cute. She's like excited to see her friend. They've quickly made it from pious little bitch status to like good friend status. Just in time for her to disappear. Then with the Offglen, when she's like telling June that she's gonna ask around about why Fred wants to see her, and she's like, it'll be okay, I'm sneaky. It makes me sad for her.
There is actually a parallel in that scene. June tells her it's too dangerous, which Nick tells her, like, what, 5 episodes later when he's not breaking up with her? It's too dangerous. Which is, yeah, it's too dangerous. Okay, so I remember that immediately triggered when I watched it. I was like, oh my God. I was like, Nick's going to say that. And like 5 episodes from now, he's going to tell her it's too dangerous. But is it really though?
I feel like Nick and Offglen have some parallels like that, the way they talk to her, but they're just watching out for her. I mean, not in the not breakup, but yeah, I guess he is trying to watch out for her.
He's trying. Not doing very good, but he is trying.
He's not even being convincing at what he's pretending to do, as you pointed out. Yeah, but maybe she's too brazen, since although it wasn't Mayday that she gets caught for, so
no.
So maybe she's not too brazen. And that's foreshadowed by Emily herself too in the birthmobile. Don't trust a carpet munching gender traitor, which is exactly what she's about to get
interrogated for.
Yeah, and worse.
At first, I was shocked that that's why Emily gets taken. Like, I thought she was going to get taken because she was Mayday. So then when I realized she got taken for being gay and having a relationship with a Martha, and then I put together that Nick knew what was going to happen because he's an eye, then it just kind of changed for me, because I don't know, like, I saw it differently, because I do believe he's an eye, but he's also Mayday. So it's like complicated.
I love in that scene in the kitchen when she forces him to admit he's an eye, the way he says yes is like he's owning it, and he knows it's horrible. Like, he's like, she's like, are you an eye? And he's like, or no, are you one of them? Do you know what they did to Offglen because you're one of them? And he's like, yes.
Yeah, and that's, he can die for that.
Right, and he doesn't lie. Like, it's just such a fucking cool character, man. Such a complicated, I mean, seriously, how could you, he's like a double agent. Like, and I don't know if I've ever really seen a true double agent story done this well. Like, I've seen a spy. I've seen spy movies. I don't know. He's like a triple spy.
Right. a spy on a spy on a spy, Max Minghella said in an interview. Back to episode 2, my next note is when June and Offglen are walking, and June says, "That was my father's parish." What does that mean? Or more accurately, who is her father? Do we know anything else about her father?
Is that the only time she ever mentions him?
Is it?
Or does June's
I
mom
think
Holly say something?
Yeah, I think
about
Holly
him.
didn't expect a relationship from him, like a marriage.
That's what I assumed.
I assumed she didn't know who her dad was, basically. Like, it was kind of a solo deal. Just the way Holly is, that maybe that's what she intended.
Yeah, and I think that is like the only time I think she ever mentions her father.
Yeah, so I think that's just really interesting that she would mention him at all, and that they would plant that there and not follow up yet or ever.
Yeah, like, is he alive? What's he doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She didn't sound disdainful when she said it. So
they showed Hannah's they did show Hannah's baptism in season 3, right?
In a later episode, yeah.
Her dad wasn't present. I mean, I would assume if it was her dad's parish and they baptized Hannah there, her father would be present.
If alive,
he wasn't.
Right.
Am I like misremembering that? He wasn't there.
No, I don't think he was there.
Yeah. So, I mean, unless, he passed or something. But yeah, I don't know.
Oh, one thing, the birthmobile, we talked about it a little bit in the spoiler free, but for me, it kind of reminded me a lot of season 4, episode 3, where June and Alma are back in the red van, this time being taken to the colonies where they're right before Alma, may she rest in peace, is hit by a train, and June and Janine escape. For no other reason except that it's a red van, but I like seeing Alma and June together. I love Alma. And then the handmaids, like, I love how they walk through this like completely ridiculous fake wife birthing with June like trying really hard not to laugh. Mrs. Putnam is like so over the top in her pretend labor pains. Her like every single muscle in her face is like creased, and she's even saying, "Oh, it hurts.
Okay.
And it's so comical to me. But Ever Carradine is amazing. I think she's like the best actress, and we get to start to see that in this episode. Yeah. There are so many people in the show that are so good at being awful characters, but like in their unique ways. I love it.
What's funny is the way she reacts to the fake birth in that episode 2 versus how Serena is when she thinks it's her turn in 2:10. Like I always remember there's this shot of Serena and she just looks so happy and content. Like finally it's my turn. And I feel like it's the complete opposite of how Naomi is. Like she couldn't care less if she had a baby or not. You know? She's agree. Kind of like going through the motions of the whole thing. And Serena is like, this is my moment. Yeah. I've arrived. Like I'm ready. And then when she gets just shit on when they come in and it's a fake birth. It's just.
Isn't that delightful though? And the look on June's face when she's sitting on the bed, like, oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Waterford. Yeah. Sorry. I actually really love that scene. I am not the following scenes, but No, but yeah, I saw the difference in those two and how they handled it too. It's interesting. And then they go into the real birthing room where Janine is handling actual childbirth like a pro, like weird makeup question, but I'm curious how they do the sweat on Janine. It just like beads on her. You probably see it again often, but most noticeably, I think, in the Boston Globe scene on June's back. It's
the sweat rolling down.
So much sweat, right? I'm curious what that actually is made by.
Yeah, like, is it somebody's job to just like spray them down? I mean,
do you think it's just
is
water?
It really?
But I feel like
where did I go wrong in life? That's not my job. I mean,
I'll spray you.
Yeah.
And also though, babies, like when babies are born, they are bloody and not.
So I think I know from watching ER, and they've talked about like when they have babies like that are born, they need to cover them in goop. I think they said it's like cottage cheese and like strawberry, like jelly, like to make it look nasty. Yeah.
Really? That's really
Um,
gross.
Yeah.
Yes, Elizabeth
Um,
Moss said in an interview that that's, you know, what they used when she gave birth to Holly. It was cream cheese and I think it was strawberry jam. And it was
Yeah.
gross and it
Yeah.
smelled
I would
really bad.
never have
Yeah.
guessed that.
She
Wow.
said it
Well,
in an interview, I remember.
Burton LeBlanc is getting really good at bloodying babies, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Although,
Blooding people just in general. Like, think of all the times, like, think of in, is it 205 when June is in the garden? She's covered
yeah.
in blood
Mm.
and leaves. And I remember, somebody, was it Burton? He posted on his Instagram a picture of Lizzie in like a bathtub and the water is just blood red. Like, I guess it was her cleaning up after that. It had to have been that one because there were leaves everywhere too. But it was just, it's crazy to think about. Oh, and it must be sticky.
And all the Chicago scenes, the bombing, I don't know. He does injuries really well.
Yeah, very well.
When she cuts her tag off too, there's a
the ear.
lot of blood.
Yeah,
a lot of blood.
I talked about that.
I read somewhere where how they did it. I have to look.
I know. I remember they did a prosthetic ear and they rigged up like a tube in it so that she would cut the tube and then the blood would come out of the tube as she kept like cutting it open more and more. Yeah.
Oh, that was very convincing. It was hard to watch.
Yeah.
I couldn't finish it, and I'm a gory person. Like, I couldn't finish it, and I love that shit. I do, and I just like I couldn't. Yep.
And I guess technically Lizzie's face applies the blood to the baby in the season 4 finale. So I guess he doesn't get credit for that one.
To go back to 210, June is the one that's there for Janine in that episode, and also in 210. When the handmaids all come into the room for June, it's Janine that is the first one that rushes up to her.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, but she's very excited. She's like, "Oh, I can't wait to meet you, little one." But it's Janine that's the first one to come to her, which
they have a special connection.
They really do. Yeah,
I mentioned that in a later note. How often it's Janine in the center of the handmaids, and it's always also like June standing up for her in that. Like in the very beginning, she's refusing to say shame. Here, she's the only one that's like really connecting with her during the childbirth, like looking at her. And
it's in 110.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then she refuses to stone her. So it's a recurring imagery, and the friendship is clearly very deep and true to both of them, even though she calls her batshit crazy Janine on her way to the birthing.
Well, I mean,
it's not untrue.
Yeah.
But she still cares about her, which is lovely.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you guys, do you guys think that was kind of the beginning of Janine and June's friendship? That moment that then we see come full circle in season 4. I mean, I think that's how I think that was a moment kind of like where June takes Janine under her wing and cares for her because she thinks Janine is not obviously okay after everything she went through, and it seems that June's a lot stronger, and we see June's affection for her friends. People always say that June's selfish and she doesn't care for her friends, but I actually don't agree. I think she cares deeply for the girls.
That's not true at all. And I do agree, because like that first time in the circle where she's refusing to shame her, I think that's not a connection between them so much as just general shock at like, what is going on here? This is what we're supposed to do now? Like, this is ridiculous. She's been gang raped and we're telling her that this is her fault. So I agree that that's not necessarily indicative of their friendship yet, and that this probably is the first time where they're like deeply connecting. And last episode, she was like crazily telling her Moira's dead, so they weren't quite that connected there either.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, I agree with you. This is the beginning of like the deeper friendship.
I also think that it's really interesting to see how we see, like, I think episode 2 is kind of telling the audience, I think I said it in the past one, what the handmaid's gonna, like, their purpose, like, besides the rape, besides everything they go through, depending on what household they're in and the wife they get and the commander, this is basically their purpose, is just having this stupid ceremony and having their baby taken away. But you see how the ceremony goes with Janine, and then you mentioned how June's ceremony was supposed to go, but in the end, June just gives birth alone.
Yeah.
June doesn't have a ceremony, so we don't get to see that from June's perspective. So I thought that was kind
Which
of
is
also
nice.
Oh, thank God. I was so
right?
happy that we didn't have to
She gets
see.
that one thing. She gets to have
Yep.
childbirth to herself. It crushes me though that Nick couldn't have been stuck there with her.
I
and the
can't
car
talk
just
about
wouldn't
it.
start.
I'm on that episode. I'm gonna can it. I have very strong feelings about the end of that episode. Very strong feelings. We won't go into it now, but Nick should have been the one that rolled up in the car at the end. Is all I'm gonna say. There were
All right.
headlights. It should have been him. Let's.
Although, like, it is fun watching them argue in the house. I agree. It is nowhere nearly what we would have liked to have seen. Anyway, and then like downstairs when the other wife, I don't know her name. I probably should, but so the other wife, I don't know her name. She's like rolling her eyes hard and saying it's
a
taking
bitch.
so long. Yes. I mean, it's hard to differentiate between the wives by calling them bitches though, because aren't they all?
No, not all.
But it reminds me too of how like pissed off, like we were kind of mentioning, Serena gets when June's going through her false labor. Like the audacity of these wives, their impatience in receiving their stolen babies is so infuriating to me. I mean, Serena rapes June when she's 9 months pregnant after she'd already nearly lost the baby to a hemorrhage.
Oh my God.
So just not just their impatience, but the extent of the wives' inability to understand and act as real moms. Like it's mind blowing to me, biology or not. People adopt kids all the time and they treat them like actual children, you know? It doesn't need, it does not need to be biologic. But in these cases of these wives, they're so superficial. And even their desire for children, I think, is so superficial. The way that they act to harm the moms and whatever, you get it. It's just very, very infuriating to me.
I just think the baby is just a status. They want the baby because that's what they're supposed to do in their beliefs of traditional family values. If they don't have a baby, then they don't have the traditional family. That's why they pushed for that so much. So I just think it's a status for them. They really don't get it. They have nannies. They have, they don't do much then walk around with a baby and show them around with the macaroons and the parties and stuff. It's just ridiculous.
The macaroon pyramid.
Yeah.
That's the scene. Do you remember the scene? It's in 213 where the wives are planning their coup, or they're going to go talk about, that we should let the girls read the Bible. There's that scene where there's the room full of the Marthas with the babies that are completely separate from the wives. I don't know if you remember. I always remember it.
I didn't, but wow, that's exactly.
Yeah. So they
mean.
do nothing to take care of the babies. Like the Marthas were in the room tending to the children and they were off, planning, we need to go talk to the commanders. So they really are not involved. It's like Scarlett said, it's just the status symbol.
Yeah.
They don't want to stay up and take care of the baby. They just want the baby to exist so that now they have power among the wives. It's, it's horrible. It's no reason to have a baby.
Yeah, I think even in a later episode, maybe it is late season 2, but it's when her false labor. There's a commander that gets promoted because his wife is pregnant. So it is very accurate.
Yeah, and they say they won't need a handmaid. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's superior to everyone because of that. So back to the macaroon. I think it's a cone, actually. How they treat her like a child when she's, again, a real mom standing in front of them. And they treat her like a child. You want a cookie? Isn't she well behaved? And I like that because they have no idea how not well behaved June Osborne is.
Right.
Yes.
She doesn't really know yet. And you see a peek of it when she goes in the bathroom and spits out the cookie. Her face afterwards is like Rebel June face. So starting to come around.
Layers are being peeled off.
Did you want to talk about, we were talking about the parallel with Janine doing her disassociating detached thing with Angela when she's feeding her, and then June kind of doing the same thing, which makes total sense with Holly after Holly was taken away, and then when they bring Holly to see June.
Right.
I don't remember which episode it's in, but see, it's 212. Okay. But yeah, that was just interesting because it's like they both don't, she can't go through that again. Do you want to talk about that, Tina, or do we kind of cover it just now?
I mean, that was it. I mean, it just shows this shared experience they all have, right? Of how horrifying the experience is to be separated from your newborn. Although I think in the script for 212 it said Holly was supposed to be 4 weeks old at that point, so she'd been separated from her for quite some time. It just goes to show that's the experience they all have. It's a coping mechanism. So it was just interesting to see it played out through two different people.
Moira does that too, right? When she gives up her baby for adoption, they're like, "Do you want to hold your baby?" And she's kind of like, "No, go ahead." Like.
And that's the difference, right? That by her
it
was by choice. She made the choice. No, I don't want the connection. Versus the two handmaids who had their babies ripped from their arms forcefully. Even though I think June did have a bit more choice in it, because when she went out and fired the gun, she knew they were going to come get her. They were going to take the baby, but it's still just horrifying. Like I can't even imagine. And then to be away from the baby, and maybe you're getting used to it, and then to have her dangled back in front of you, her reaction makes so much sense. And you see it with Janine that episode too. You try so hard, but instinct is going to take over, which it does in both cases.
The hospital flashbacks, I just love how they do all these flashbacks amidst the episode. It's just interlaid so perfectly. But the hospital flashbacks, the empty nursery reminds me a little bit of the empty hospital that Emily wakes up in the next episode.
Yeah.
But ultimately in that scene, you see the reality of the fertility crisis truly like settling into June, I think, for the first time as she looks around the nursery, seeing no other babies.
Yeah, definitely.
But how many times can one mom have a child taken from her? I think that is like in this episode when she has her baby stolen, even pre-Gilead, that was my reaction at the time. Like, how terrifying is that single incident by itself? Completely solitary. And then fast forward to the next, not just having Hannah ripped from her arms, but then again, like seeing Hannah and having her taken away, having her baby, having her taken away. I don't think anyone's ever experienced that most painful thing that a mom could ever go through so many times.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. I mean, literally hours after she was born, she was almost stolen.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't made that connection. That's terrible.
Right.
Yeah, it's like complex PTSD, right? Like, is not just one trauma. It's not just that you were in a car accident and now you're have a phobia of driving. It's like repeated, sustained trauma, like you're saying, and there's levels of it. Yeah, it's like worse. It's like way worse, because every time it happens, it's not just the trauma of that baby being ripped from your arms. It's also the helplessness that it's going to keep happening at other postings, and this is your life. I mean, it's just,
How could you ever get past that? Even if you did live happily in Canada with your children, I feel like you could never get past that many times of your children being stolen from you. Like,
totally.
It's like the absolute most maximum fear and pain.
Yeah, it's a really good villain. It's a really good monster for the movie, right? Like, it is horrific beyond imagining, I think,
And in some cases, she's been strong enough to like give them up for their own good, which I think she's probably preparing to do right now at the season 4 finale. And I think you mentioned this, Tina. Then you have Luke saying, "Wait here," when her baby is missing. It's very consistent with him always trying to pretend to be the alpha male, like the "I'll take care of you" kind of guy. And with Nick, he's perfectly like happy with her as alpha while still fully pushing back and fighting with her when she's being stupid. But their relationship seems so much more real, Nick and June, than Luke and June. Seems sort of like surface level.
Yeah. Wait here, honey. Can you imagine if in the Boston Globe Nick had said, "Wait here, honey"? Can you imagine? Like, just think of the difference. Like, he wanted her to stay, right? He really did, because it was dangerous. Can you imagine though if he had been like, "It's fine, just wait here. No, I'm gonna take the car." I can't even comprehend him ever saying anything like that.
Speaking to her in that manner,
No, not ever.
I'm just I'm just trying to picture it.
You can't, right? You can't.
No, I can't.
So going back to this episode, episode 2, I was just thinking about June flirting with Nick again at this point in their story, you know, flashing the skin and like daydreaming about him and stuff. It's like safe kind of, because nothing can really happen. Like what, like they're in Gilead, nothing's going to happen between them. But then they get forced to. Right. And so it's almost like, I was thinking again about that, actually watching episode 5 recently, and just how, you know, her reaction of Serena asking, or not asking, telling her that she's going to have to go sleep with Nick. Like, part of that, I think, was just the realization of like, no, this is real now. Like, even though obviously there's more to it than that, but just that was part of it to me, because she could like safely flirt with him without acting on it. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it had been a harmless daydream, and she loved indulging it.
It was just like a little escape.
It was never going to happen.
Right, a fun little escape where it was like, oh, you know, we both kind of are attracted to each other, but like nothing's going to happen.
It's the fan fiction, like you said.
Yeah,
she's writing her fan.
She's daydreaming little fan fiction for herself to keep herself going, which I would be doing the exact same thing in her situation. I do it just to escape my job every day.
Yeah. So Nick looking up at June, it's 9:00, and Nick knows that June has to go to Fred's office, and he's worried about her. So he's out on the stoop, just like staring into her window, like Romeo and Juliet style. And it just, you know, he's obviously very worried about her, but also just in the context of future episodes, that's the first time I see his like sad head nod, which I think is uniquely Nick.
Yeah.
It's resigned.
Like the head nod of resignation. Yeah, like, okay,
right.
this is happening.
Slight head nod, but
shit, I can't do anything.
Right, and that's the first time that I ever.
He also does it on their way back to Jezebel's the second time when they're in the back. Nick just needs to chill. Yeah, he's like, okay, cool. I see what's happening, and I fucking hate everything.
And I want to die. Yeah.
And when she said, and in season 3, when she's like, goodbye, and he's like,
oh, that breaks my heart.
Be nice to him, please.
And that was the first time I saw it.
And also him looking at her window, that's one of the first times he does it, but that's a recurring theme for them, is he's always watching her at her window. He does it there when he comes back from Canada to tell her about Luke. And then in season 3. And then there's actually a twist on it in episode, is it 2 of episode 4 of season 2, when they bring her back to the house and you don't see him for a minute, and she looks out her window at his porch and it's covered in leaves and it looks like nobody has been there. That's her looking out at him.
I didn't notice that scene. Now I'm gonna watch that.
They put her back in her room and she goes to the window and she's looking out. It's right before Serena comes in and like
I know.
92 days or whatever. She looks, and like I said, it's all covered in leaves. And at that point, we haven't seen him, you know, since, you know, they left each other at the Globe. So she doesn't know, like maybe they killed him, you know. Right. So then when he shows back up in the room,
stop it. I'm going to have nightmares. God damn it. It's like fucking midnight. You're like in my head.
But he's okay. And then he shows up and he's there, and, you know, her world just, you know, everything falls away. They're trying to force that awful smoothie down her throat. And she's like, I don't care, because
that explains the look on her. Like, I know she'd be relieved to see him anyway, but I did not remember that scene in the movie. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
When she's walking to the Waterford's study to play Scrabble, she does this voiceover about horror movies. She ends it with like, please don't let me be the dumb girl in the I don't know the, you know, quote per se, but she also says, what is it that he wants? And she's talking about Fred, you know, like if he wants something, that's going to be his weakness. So obviously his weakness is June. She figured that out, you know, and that's why she uses that amazing voice to manipulate him so easily.
Yeah.
Good point.
She's very meek. She's very subdued. Her voice has got that like high pitch to it.
Fake,
Yeah, that very fake she does it so well, and he doesn't even realize he's being played because he's so just
I can't comprehend he's being manipulated. I don't think.
I just think they make it obvious. They make that voice so obvious, like so overacted on purpose for us to know that he is so easily manipulated. Right. Because he's just oblivious.
It's the same exact way she talks to Luke in 409 when he's telling her he wants her to go back and see Nick. Like the way, just the tone of her voice and the way she's speaking, which I think is so interesting because she's not herself there. She's not. And it's such a stark contrast to the way she is when she's with Nick at any point in even in episode 2, when she doesn't really know him or trust him.
So I would describe that as docile and like placating a dangerous male's ego to get safety, right? So like, hi honey, with a high-pitched voice, and I really like the thing that you're doing. Like that fake shit, you know? And when she's with Nick, she's like, fuck you, motherfucker, you can't tell me what to do. And he's like, I know, and that's why I love you, babe. Like,
she's like truly herself with Nick. Like at all points, she always has been.
You can see it so clearly with the way she acts. It's so like the way Lizzie does it. Like it's just so like it's weird how it's like you see her real personality pretty much only with Nick. I mean, only with Nick.
Yeah, the different levels that she plays, but it is very clear that the real level is with Nick, you know?
Yeah, like it's very obvious, even though we have no
a Serena level and a Luke level, and then there's this is actually June level, that's level Nick, you know?
Right. And I think it's interesting because I feel like just the fact that we can feel that we can feel that it's real, like without having a baseline for who June is. Like that's so interesting to me. Because even like flashback June is not really June. Like it's like 70% June. It's not like all of her.
In her flashback, she's also, I mean, she's a little subdued, a little bit, like society-wise, but she still has that kick that she has, you know, but she doesn't really have to use it. She had to use it once Gilead came around and once she kind of started navigating that world.
Do you see her use it at all in pre-Gilead?
The big thing to me was the protest that she goes to. I forgot how like intense she is in that scene. Yeah. Do you know when they get like when they have to run and
that's horrifying.
The shooting starts?
That's episode 3.
Yeah. But she's like she's like very like fighting back kind of at the beginning of that scene and the protest. So I don't know. That was the scene to me where I was like, oh, there's June.
Right.
We see the first Scrabble game with creepy Fred. And I think that's the beginning of that amazing monologue Joseph Fiennes did. I think it was episode, I don't remember the episode in season 4 when they're talking and they're having their drink about how he helped her survive. 10?
10, yeah.
Okay. I think, you know, that's the beginning of that. And then we get all the way to episode 10 when he's completely explaining something that only he can see. Because he's an idiot.
Because it's not real.
Because it's not real. So I think, you know, that's also, you know, a nice parallel.
In the finale, he still didn't get it. Okay.
Yeah.
At the moment of his death, he's going, why are you kissing the driver? What the fuck is this? This is sick. And we're all just like, oh, bitch. Like,
it's been happening for 4 years, huh?
Can we fill you in on some shit? Like, did you not know, Fred? Did you not?
They literally had a child together, a whole child.
They're fucking. No, they've been
Serena
fucking.
yelled that to her. Remember? She was like, you're so stupid. You sent her off with the driver, the father of her baby.
Literally.
They hate you. They hate you. And he just could not.
It's like his dissociation there, right? Because like he has this narrative that him and June are in love and he's giving her these luxuries and she needs him and wants him and shit. And like she plays into that, right? Anyway, the point is that fucking to the moment of his death,
yeah,
Fred
still delusional.
He's like the most
was crushing on June and thinking she was crushing on him back.
I really want to make a fan video where it's like during the kiss and like Fred staring at them, it's just like a series of flashbacks of like all of the times that he should have figured it out. Where he's just like, oh,
the baby looks just like its father, and Nick like has the side eye.
Yeah.
Nick's like,
it's like a 20-minute reel of just all of the evidence lined up.
And she also says to him in the library in one episode, like, you'll never know like what it's like to have your own baby, like after she's pregnant, right? Like
yes, yeah.
Everyone keeps telling him
because the look on her face is just so awesome.
And you'll never know.
And you'll never know.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
And you never will. She says,
never
like,
will. That's it.
Yeah.
And you never will.
And you never will.
After the Fred Scrabble game, when he's trying to arrange another Fred Scrabble game, and he says it's a date, and then his next line is, "Now I think it's time for you to go home." Like, it's just so gross. He's so gross all the time. It's so grooming-ish. Like, you're a child, and I control you.
I hadn't realized how creepy he was until I started doing the rewatch, because obviously we're paying more attention. Yeah. And I was just like, how did I miss all this? I mean, obviously you see it first and then you go back, but he's just like, when we get further down, what's episode 6, 7, and 8? Oh my God. It's going to be bad. It's going to be real bad.
Back to the whole thing with Nick, we didn't really talk about, what he had experienced with the previous Offred.
Yes.
I think, what do they call her? Of dead, I think is what they call her. I wonder what Fred had done with the previous Offred to have Nick so freaked out, right? And he knows how her story ends, right? She ends up hanging from the light fixture in her room, and he has to cut her down.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you can almost see all that in his head when he's having to tell her, like, go to the commander. He's like, here it goes again.
Here it goes. It's happening again. Yeah. Fred like skipped the Scrabble step of the coercion, like, because he's. And I don't remember which episode, but we were talking about this too, like, where he's telling June how she died. Like, June asked, I think it's 4. Yeah, 4. Yeah. And
4.
And like, he's clearly trying to do it differently this time because he wants like her to live, but not as like I kind of felt like whatever. Well, I guess we don't know how much Nick knows about what Fred did with the other one, because it was in a study, the same as he was doing with June, but. Like, yeah, I guess for me, I kept thinking, does he know that Fred's playing it differently this time? Like, does he know that it's like, not that that's any better, but it just, I don't know.
Do we know? Do you really confidently think that he's playing it differently?
I only think that because he said, it's the whole thing where June says, and you want my life to be bearable.
Right.
Her life wasn't bearable, and you want my life to be bearable. Like, I feel like we don't know that at all. That's speculation.
No, I was just curious. I think about this, and I'm unclear on what I think happened, because they did speak about these Latin words, and I don't know. I'd like to know, but I don't think we ever will know. Did we talk about I'm not that kind of person, and she's very much that kind.
Oh, by the way, right. I'm not that kind of person. What came to my mind was the scene where, is it Esther? Is that the girl?
Yes. Esther.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Where she strings up Esther's rapist like a pig in the slaughterhouse where Esther kills pigs, right? Like, that's June. And then you flash back to her going like, I'm not that kind of person. Like, that's what I saw. That moment flashed into my head. I was like, oh shit, like, honey, you have no idea how cold and hard you're going to become.
Or just like Angel's Flight, like putting together the Angel's Flight and stuff. Like, that's her arc, is like from I'm not that kind of person to
that's
like,
right. How far she's
I'm gonna go on a suicidal mission to rescue these kids,
decapitating Fred and hanging him on a makeshift wall and carrying him to doing a salvaging impromptu in the woods with her girlfriends over lunch. Like, meanwhile she's like, I don't want to talk secrets, like with Emily. She's like, I don't think I could like listen in. Like, I'm like, bitch, like
come on.
Yeah.
I like that it's Emily that tells her, no one is until they have to be. Because up to this point, Emily was, I don't know if she had been there longer than June. I don't know if that's clear on the show. But Emily's always played the longer game, I think. And she didn't have anything to lose. She knew her wife and her son were in Canada. She was basically alone. Versus June, that still wanted to get Hannah. So I always thought that June used to be more careful about the things that she used to do until she got broken in season 3.
But yeah, that is, after hearing that line, it was something to think about, like, oh no, you will become that person. Just you wait. just you wait what's
All
coming
right.
around the corner. Yeah. Right? Like,
yeah.
You'll see.
It's like, what does June say to Esther? June goes like, make me proud. That's what I was thinking of, like season 4 June saying that to herself when she's like, I'm not that kind of person. It's like, make me proud, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna grow up.
Yeah.
At the end of her voiceover, she also says, now there has to be an us because now there's a them.
I can't talk about this fucking show because I'm always just like, yeah, it's like the worst possible nightmare. It's like the most hellish, awful thing. And then like we flip over to like, Nick is so nervous around her. He's so nervous.
It's art though, like you said recently. It is just brilliant art. A piece of art that's layered with all the different human emotions upon each other, contrasting each other. And there is love in this vile place, and there's just horrible shit that happens in their love, and it just...
I think you're right that like that's what makes it's almost like we wouldn't know what light is if there wasn't darkness.
Right.
Like, yeah. Like it would just be two people. Imagine if this was like an AU and it was just like set alternate universe, and it was just like set in like dudes just like looking at each other. It wouldn't be interesting, but like It's interesting. I was telling people before we started recording, I was explaining, my son is 8, and last night we were going to bed, and I was explaining one of the fan fictions I was reading, and I was like, he's like, I don't understand, and I was like, no, these two people, like, it's illegal for them to be friends, and he was like, what do you mean? I was like, they're not allowed to be friends, they're not allowed to hug, they're not allowed to talk, like, and he was like, that's wrong, that just like feels bad. I'm like, yes, exactly, like even a fucking 8-year-old gets that, you know,
the most basic.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about the people behind the scenes too. Obviously, Bruce Miller created the show and Margaret Atwood wrote the book, so we would be nowhere without them. But on this particular episode, the brilliant writing staff consists of John Herrera, Nina Fiore, and Lynn Renee Maxey. And the episode was directed by Reed Morano, who also directed the pilot episode and the next episode we'll be watching, the 3rd episode. And she won an Emmy for the first episode.
Yeah, I think they said they owed like the iconic, you know, the close-up shot of the faces.
June.
Yeah.
To her.
Of June. Yeah, I think they said they owe that to her. That was her vision, which is so cool because that shot has become so iconic for the series as a whole, which is super cool to leave a mark on a series like that. That's just brilliant to think about.
Right. And
it's so cool.
Yeah. And I read something also that like she was even talking about that, like how they want to be like up in her face, making you feel kind of uncomfortable. And at the same time, they also need to focus on keeping the world, you know, opening up the world. And it's just like a crazy balance. I don't know how you could have that in your mind. Like even when she said she interviewed for this job that she really wanted, it seemed, she made this like lookbook that's famous now. It's like a mood board for how she felt like the episode should go, and bound it for them. And I would love to get my eyes on that, but it just sounds like she really, like the second she read the pilot episode, she had this whole vision, and it melded perfectly with Bruce and Warren's vision.
I think I read that they had like a male director, kind of like already not in place, but I guess they were leaning more towards that director. I mean, the interview doesn't mention who it was, but that she kind of really wanted it, and she did the mood board. And I think she prepped for like 72 hours before she pitched what she wanted to do for the show. So it's really interesting.
That's like no time to get something as incredible as she put together.
Right. You just like, some people are just like born to do like certain things, you know?
That's
like,
amazing.
I couldn't produce anything worthy of looking at for this show in that amount of time.
Sorry,
I like this paragraph in the art and making of The Handmaid's Tale. Before any set could be sketched or ground could be broken, the team knew they had to figure out the hard and fast rules of this dystopia. To do this, Miller and Littlefield worked closely with Reed Morano, as well as the 2 talented women they had brought on to handle costuming and set design, Anne Crabtree and Julie Berghoff. Together with Morano, the 3 would dub themselves the mayors of Gilead, delighting in the irony that 3 women were the architects of Gilead's patriarchal society. I like that. I like the women being in charge behind the scenes and crushing it, you know?
Oh yeah, that's like, especially for a show like this, that's just incredible.
Exactly. Chef's kiss.
I was thinking about what I read earlier about when she was prepping. She said she used quotes from the book and imagery and photo stills from movies to do her mood board for Gilead, and she uses colors to to kind of determine like what's placed in Gilead and what are flashbacks. She uses colors and lights to do that. And one of the quotes she used for that prep she did was, "A rat in a maze is free to go anywhere as long as it stays inside the maze," which I found really interesting.
I like that quote.
Got that quote. So yeah.
I think I also read that she added playlists, like music to it too.
Yes, I
really
remember
not
reading
to the
that.
book, but yeah, and I like she literally handled every possible aspect of immersing yourself immediately, like you said, in such a short time frame. And we've been talking about the cinematography a ton in only the 2 episodes that we've recorded so far, and that seems to be her specialty. So anyway, she definitely deserves a shout out on these episodes.
When you were talking about the songs, I remember she said that for those 72 hours, she heard the same song. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly. It's Hildur Gudnadóttir's "Without Thinking" was the song she heard on repeat to get ready for that presentation she was going to do.
Now I want to listen to it.
I know. I was gonna say I'm gonna have to look it up.
The song title doesn't tell me a whole lot yet. So.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that is a wrap on our deep dive into season 1, episode 2. Join us next week for our analysis of season 1, episode 3. The spoiler free will come out on Monday, and the spoiler full deep dive will come out on Wednesday. So have a nice weekend, and thanks for hanging out with us with Above the Garage.
You know, I think about us, the 3 of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's your day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Her father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.